Hey y'all, welcome to the talk with Almost PhD Ambi. That's me. Thank you all so much for joining me on this new journey that I'm starting. So, really, for this first episode for this season, I really just wanted to introduce myself, give you all a sense of who it is that I am, where I come from, what it is that I've done in the past, what it is that I plan to do in the future. I am PhD Ambi. My full name is Amber Clunie. I'm originally from the Bronx, New York. What's poppin'? Uptown Gun Hill, BX stands up. So, really, where I come from, it's a lot of Caribbeans. They call it like Little Jamaica, basically. My family is also from Belize, and that's on my mom's side. And then my dad's side is from St. Kitts. Growing up Caribbean, there was a lot of alcohol use. If anyone is Caribbean out there, we're going to have a backyard party. There's going to be dance hall, and we're always going to be partying probably until, say, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. Like that is normal for us. I don't think I've ever run into any other population that can really keep up with partying like us, except for maybe Latinx communities. Americans, they be ready to go home from a party at like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Definitely at these parties, a lot of alcohol use, substance use, I would say, particularly within my family unit. I didn't really see a lot of substance use, but in other families, that was utilized. Really, that's another reason why I got into the worlds of psychology as well. Just growing up within that, it was seen as more so celebratory, it was seen as normalized. I didn't really think anything about it. There was never any type of negative connotation. It was just always associated with positivity as being something to be proud of. We're partying, we're having a good time. And as I continued to get older, I started to go out into my community more independently, and I would start to see a lot more alcohol use, substance abuse. Then I would start to see the dark side of it. Anyone who is from the Bronx, that uptown area, Gun Hill Projects, Burke Ave, you go onto White Plains Road, anywhere from 216th and up, you're probably going to see a lot more of that alcohol use, that substance use, those quote unquote high risk areas is definitely very different now with gentrification. I started to see it associated more so with individuals who were homeless or of low socioeconomic status or SES, kind of living in poverty, and then also having these different comorbid disorders, experiencing some kind of depression, anxiety, trauma, etc. And when I would try and ask my mother, grandmother about it, they would just be like, oh, don't worry about them, ignore them, we're not like them. I started to get conditioned to either ignore these individuals and or stigmatize them. I feel like that's what we've been taught within society, to ignore and or stigmatize addiction overall. So I am going to use addiction a lot, or that term. I want you all to think about it in a broad sense, not just necessarily alcohol abuse or substance abuse, but there can also be gambling addictions. There can be people with sex addictions. I've also worked with communities where there are like eating disorders and things of that sort, and that can cross over into those compulsive disorders. There's a very wide range of different types of addictions. When I started to kind of make these different associations, I started to become a lot more curious. Like, why am I getting taught to basically ignore these people? Why is it that we're celebrating with alcohol or substances, but then these other people are basically using these tools as these maladaptive coping mechanisms? As I continued to get older, I then saw the show Intervention. For those of you who don't know the show Intervention, at this point it's had 20 plus seasons. And yes, I am one of those people who have seen every single episode of every single season. Some people may say that it's more of like a cliche kind of reality show. It focuses on a particular addict. It follows them, it's a documentary, follows them throughout their journey abusing substances, and then it also interviews their family and or friends and how it's just impacted all of them and their lives. But what I really started to focus on with these individuals who were going through substance abuse or alcohol abuse was they would go back to their childhood And then they would end up basically pinpointing that traumatic experience that ended up onsetting when they started to abuse these alcohols and or substances. That was really something that was like an epiphany moment for me because I started to see that significant correlation between trauma and substance and or alcohol abuse. And sometimes I'll say abuse, misuse, use. I also want to be very conscious about the different terms because then that can be, tolerance, and then that can also cross over into a substance use disorder as well. Just kind of seeing that journey between these different individuals on that show, that is when I was like, you know what? This is really what I want to do, specifically within my community. Yes, the show did have some African American individuals or Latinx individuals or different people of color, but of course, like we see in any other show, the majority was white people. I want to end up helping out the people that I'm seeing within my particular community. Some of the work that I've done just within my past clinical experience, I did go to undergrad at the illustrious #1 HBCU Spelman College. Don't you wish you were a Spelmanite like me? While I was at Spelman, I was really, really grateful just to get this opportunity by, I'm never really going to name drop, but for someone who is going to actually just change really the trajectory of my career, that's where I have to name drop. So Dr. Natalie Watson Singleton, she actually allowed me to come onto a project that is called the Grady Nia Project with Dr. Nadine Caslow. It was my junior year of undergrad. I didn't really have many credentials or much experience. And so I really just started off as a group helper with basically low income African American women who were experiencing intimate partner violence and or alcohol or substance abuse, and then they also had a lot of the times some type of childhood trauma and then also suicidal ideation. And in the beginning, I really just came on as a student researcher as well as helping out with groups here and there, really just kind of doing check-ins. And then also I was able to go to different units within Grady Memorial Hospital, and I was just doing intakes, doing some questionnaires. I even learned how to take people's blood pressure. That was really the turning point in my academic as well as my occupational career. When I was a senior at that point, I was able to actually co facilitate two of the groups within the Grady Nia project. So I was able to co facilitate at times their childhood trauma group as well as their substance abuse group. And just working with those women and being able to see, again, that direct impact within just marginalized communities of color, marginalized communities when it comes to your socioeconomic status, being a woman, just again, all of these different demographics that really end up impacting how it is that you choose to cope with different traumas that you may have experienced, or just again, these different life experiences that we have all of the time. That was just really a turning point for me. So then I ended up graduating, of course, and I moved on to get my master's in mental health counseling at the University of Miami. So it's all about the U. Going to UM, it was required for us to do individual counseling at the Institute for Individual and Family Counseling. So I did do therapy there. It just wasn't really like my niche. So I ended up finding some awesome opportunities outside of UM. And I was able to get an internship as a student researcher again at Monsanito and affiliates. And while I was there, I was able to work with some teenage and adolescent girls who were experiencing eating disorders. And working with them, I was again really more so on the research part, doing statistics really behind the scenes, putting numbers into Excel and Access. But I was able to actually become CAPS 5 certified. That is basically the clinician administered PTSD for the DSM 5 scale. Being able to do that, I was then able to more so interact with these young girls and begin to really give them those scales as far as being able to see, okay, did you experience any form of trauma? And when it comes to trauma, that can be, of course, physical trauma, emotional, mental, sexual. There are so many different forms of trauma. And it was uncanny to me how many of these girls had experienced some type of trauma. That ended up being very significant with their onset again of these different types of eating disorders. That ended up making me just be so much more interested in this correlation. Then I moved on to the Advocate program. And while I was at the Advocate, that was a very different type of setting for me. They really just kind of threw me like 6 feet in. And there, this was actually post COVID. So it was all through telehealth. I was actually completely facilitating very independently. They were all male felons. They were convicted of either domestic violence and or having some kind of substance abuse. I was doing biopsychosocial assessments, but then I was also facilitating these groups. And at first I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to work with these men who had, basically be convicted of some type of DV case. Like, I just finished working with women who were experiencing intimate partner violence. And one thing I will say, I absolutely loved my time at the Advocate program. It was one of the best experiences that I have had. A little disclaimer: definitely a lot of the topics, especially just when it comes to psychology, mental health, also our political, social climate in general right now. I know that a lot of topics can be very heavy, very serious. I will try my best throughout this podcast to keep things light, airy, fun at times. I also do, of course, want to acknowledge the seriousness, of course, of DV, of IPV, of trauma, of substance abuse, alcohol abuse. I'm never going to sit here and say that I am, on the side, like on one person's side, on the other person's side. I am a firm believer in, if I have not gone through your personal experience, I cannot possibly understand what it is that you've gone through. Right? So I'm never going to sit here and say, oh my gosh, I understand how this person felt. I'm always going to try and express just my empathy, right? Which is only just me saying that I can only imagine what it is that they've gone through. I really just believe that, there are multiple sides to a story, and everyone's experience is their personal experience. So that was a very wonderful experience for me. And that was really a time in my career where I really started to believe more in myself and started to really gain that confidence that, you know what, Amber, you can really like do this on your own. Like, I have always been a pretty confident person, but that's when I knew for sure. I was like, yeah, like you can definitely do this. Fast forward, here we are now. I am currently a fifth year doctoral student at Howard University, HU, Shout out to all my Bisons. And just kind of a little bit brief background on what I've done since I've been at HU. I've done individual therapy at the counseling center. I have worked at the DCVA, so working with veterans, that has definitely been a very, very just positive experience for me, very intellectual experience. Again, just my interest when it comes to trauma. Working with veterans, I'll definitely say their unique experiences of trauma when it comes to military, like sexual trauma or MST. Of course, again, that link to, just different addictions, things of that sort. I have done some work with the Washington Health Institute. So that is basically a private clinic where I mainly worked with individuals who were of low SES. They were also HIV positive and then experiencing some form of alcohol and or substance abuse. Something else I do want to say, seldom is someone going to only be experiencing a substance abuse and or alcohol abuse disorder. there is 95% of the time going to be some kind of underlying disorder or comorbid disorder. So there's going to be some kind of depression, anxiety. Sometimes you have more so your more severe mental illnesses like schizophrenia. You have your personality disorders, borderline personality, things of that sort. And then you have with more so your teenagers and or adolescents, there's those defiancy pieces or your ADHDs, things like that. There is definitely a lot of comorbidity within my field that I've seen as well and that I've worked with. So there has been really just an array of things that I've seen. At WHI worked more so with just people within the community, and that's where I learned a lot about myself and really just saw more of the work that I wanted to do. And then for my final externship, I did a lot more of assessment work, neuropsychological assessments specifically with geriatric population. So really just individuals coming in with memory concerns, a lot of dementia, Alzheimer's, and so I just did a lot of cognitive assessments. You have your intellectual assessments, personality assessments, et cetera, et cetera. And then finally, I am at the end of my road because y'all, whoever is out there in school, school is hard. Undergrad is hard, grad school is hard, doctoral students, like you just know it's all very hard.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa.
That's too damn bad! You keep digging!
So very happy to be at the end. I just started my internship. And so for internship, I'll be at Basics Group Practice. It's another private practice. I'll be working really mainly with adolescents who, again, experience trauma. But I'll also be working outside of that in a rehab center. So just really always having to find the work that I love to do. And hopefully in a year from now, not hopefully, definitely in a year from now, I will be PhD Ambi. So that's why I say almost, because we're almost at the end of the line. But moving forward into what it is that I plan to do for the future, definitely, like I just stated, in a year from now, we're going to have those three letters behind my name. I definitely would like to also be a licensed psychologist because something that I learned is that you can have a PhD and still not be making any money if you don't have your license. So, anyone who is out there who wants to go back to school to get a PhD, please think about getting your license first because you can make a lot more money. Yes, going to be dropping gems all the time. My main goal, of course, is private practice, right? And everyone always says private practice, but I feel like they never really have a very particular goal. I really want to focus my practice around being a community centered practice that, yes, of course, the substance abuse piece, the trauma piece, but like I also stated, there's a lot of that comorbidity. And I really want to open it to these marginalized populations. I want to really have people be able to walk into a space where they may not have had access to other spaces because of their, again, SES, because of their gender, because of their race, ethnicity, because of their sexual orientation. I also come from the LGBTQ plus community, so that can be something else that you would be surprised a lot of people really get turned away for that. Any type of marginalized backgrounds that may be restricting people from getting access to mental health care, I really want them to be able to find a space that they can get quality mental health care and be able to actually access that. I also realize that that is easier said than done because bills still have to get paid. Y'all, I've been in school for 20 plus years. I'm not going to say my age, but I think that y'all can do 2 plus 2 and equal 4. And I am in a lot of debt. So, yes, I do still have to make money. And that is also why I'm doing this podcast. I hope that y'all will, throw some money my way. I'll put my Cash App somewhere around here. Something my editor is going to do that for me. But it really is, just a huge goal of mine to be able to make that accessible to essentially everyone. Not just that, being in the community, that's one thing. I'm sure you all have heard of the Betty Ford Center, right? So that is like your basically pinnacle of rehab centers. I want to be the Amber Clunie of Betty Ford centers, I guess. So like the Clunie Foundation or something like that, where I basically opened up my chain of rehab centers all across the country, all across the world, because I don't think I've ever seen any other young Black woman that has opened several like wide rehab centers that are really just nationwide or even international. And I really want to do that. I feel like everyone uses the word impossible, but I want to make that very possible. And of course, I know that I can't do it alone, right? I'm going to have my multidisciplinary team. So I'm going to bring on my social workers, going to bring on my nurse practitioners, my psychiatrists, just everyone that needs to join the team. So again, also giving jobs to people in the community as well. That's something else that's very important to me. The reason why I really wanted to go and get my PhD, I am a very social person. I see myself as doing it all. I really have done it all. I have been published 3, 4 times by now, really just journal articles and things of that sort. But I would like to write novels. And so I want to be able to push those into the community as well. Novels about my personal life. I want to be able to sell novels about skills and things that I'm even going to talk about on this podcast. Also bringing up this podcast. This has been a dream of mine for a while. I wanted to do a talk show, but I realized that in today's day and age, talk shows are kind of, I guess, old school or, Gen Z. I don't know what you kids call it now. I'm a dinosaur these days. I'm really a 60-year-old living in like, I've been told that I look 16, 18, or 21, so you could choose any of those. I'm like a 60-year-old living in one of those bodies. I have really wanted to have a talk show, but I guess a podcast for right now is the next best thing. And you all are joining me on that journey. I want to continue to do my research and continue to publish when it comes to journal articles. I want to be able to sit on these different boards and things of that sort. When it comes to academia, really not fond of teaching. Again, I've been in school for forever, so I really want to get as far away from any academic institution as possible. However, I'm also not going to turn down free money. So if anyone is asking me to come and teach as an adjunct or something of that sort, all right, sure. I'll do a little semester, a little year, but that's a little bit on the lower side of my spectrum. I just want to be able to do all of the things that I envision myself doing, and I don't want anyone to be able to tell me no, because they're not going to be able to, because I'm going to have all of the credentials to literally do everything that I want to within literally my career. And then finally, what you all have joined me for, because I've talked so much about myself, the podcast. What is the talk with PhD Ambi even going to be about? I wanted to start off with the overarching topic of identity for this season, and then really just like have these subtopics of identity throughout. So kind of like your personal identity, what your identity might look like within the workspace, school space, kind of your identity within social groups, within intimate settings. And the talk really comes from a sense of whenever your significant other or your boss, any kind of authoritative figure, even your friends, whenever they come to you and say, babe, we need to talk, the first thing you're thinking in your mind is, oh my gosh, what do we need to talk about? Or you literally get that feeling of anxiety. There's this overcoming feeling of dread that, just comes over you. So I really want to, again, take that negative association away from the talk, especially within today's day and age with all of this technology, social media. I feel like no one even knows how to have a meaningful in person interaction with each other anymore because everyone just hides behind a screen. So I want us to really learn how to have these talks with each other and not be afraid to actually interact with each other, don't be afraid to talk to each other, y'all. It is literally a wonderful thing to do. I love talking all the time, even sometimes to myself. But no, I'm not crazy, I promise. I'm really just going to have these different, basically, topics regarding identity, but also just, about these difficult talks that you might have with very important individuals within your life, but also because I am a PhD student, and of course, this is also about psychology. I'm going to be dropping really important psychological skills and, of course, some research every now and again. And, just really keeping it as interactive as possible, just so that you all can take some notes, jot some things down, have some little gems dropped and whatnot, as far as how you can really apply this to your everyday life, to your everyday relationships, and really just feel more confident again in having these talks with your significant other, having these talks with authoritative figures like your boss, professors, teachers, with your parents. If you are a parent, having these talks with also children, teenagers, or, if you are a boss, having these talks with employees. I really am going to show you how to do this in every single role that you are in. I promise you, you're going to get all of it. At the same time, though, I want to remind you all, this is a podcast. This is not individual therapy. This is not group therapy. If you want that, you're going to have to pay me. Like I said, I'm in a lot of debt. So, all of those services, I'm going to need a pretty little coin for that. But nah, I'm really going to try and provide as much as I can for you all. I really just, want to again keep this super light, airy, fun, as informative as possible as well. I want it to be also super personable, as well as, like I said, sometimes it might get, a bit more serious. And yes, this is going to be an individual or solo dolo podcast. But if I ever feel like at times someone else might be a bit more of an expert on a topic, I might bring in a little co host. Again, drop some more expertise for you all. I want to best serve you all as well as I can. That is really the most for, again, this intro podcast. I want you all to definitely like, subscribe, turn on your notifications for every time that I'm going to be posting. You all can definitely find my podcast on Apple Music, Spotify, Pandora, and all other streaming platforms every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. And then I will be also posting it on YouTube. I'll be posting reels on TikTok, Instagram, and you can find all those links here, 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 here. Again, my editor is going to do all of that. I'm not technologically savvy, y'all. I said that already. And that will be posted every Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. Thank you all for joining this journey with me. And that is the talk with PhD Ambi. That is me. Bye, y'all.